Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have a wonderful show lined up for you today. First up, Carolyn Armstrong is here to celebrate her middle grade novel. It's called Echo Warriors 2, No Time to Waste. And later in the show, we will be welcoming back Courtney Cino. She's here to celebrate her new picture book. It's called Finally Home. Hey, my friends, here's something to think about. What if mistakes weren't something to fear, but something to celebrate? In It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe, young readers meet Bink, a lovable little monster who worries they're not good enough when they struggle or make mistakes. But then, Bink discovers a powerful truth. Every uh-oh is an opportunity. Every question is a chance to grow. And every child deserves to know perfection isn't what makes you special. Curiosity, courage, and self-love do. A must-read for parents, teachers, and anyone who wants to help kids build resilience and confidence. Get your copy of It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe today, because learning begins when we stop fearing the unknown. This episode is brought to you by The Mystery of Mystic Mountain, a great middle grade novel by Janet Fox. Becca Soloway's perfect summer goes up in smoke when her mom flees a looming divorce by dragging Becca to a Montana resort. To make matters worse, her mom's hasty booking lands them not at a luxury spa, but at an aging dude ranch called Far Away. Becca is miserable until she meets the Wrangler's son, John, who shows her what might be the first clue to a century-old mystery, the lost treasure of a Robin Hood-like outlaw known as Pearl Handle Pete. You and your kids are going to love this book, The Mystery of Mystic Mountain by Janet Fox. It deserves a place in your family library. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Join us right now from the great state of Illinois. Our guest is here today. Well, first off, we're celebrating beautiful weather here in April, and we're also celebrating her new middle grade novel. It's called Echo Warriors 2, No Time to Waste. Please welcome to the show, Carolyn Armstrong. Hey, Carolyn, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Great. I'm interested to hear about Echo Warriors 2. Now, this is the second book in the series. It's not like Star Wars. It started at episode 4, is it?
No, it is the second book in the series. The first book was called At the Edge of the Ice, and that's where it starts off. So I'm going to have to talk a little bit about one in
Sure.
order to get to book 2. So book 1 takes place in Svalbard, Norway, which is just very close to the North Pole. And that is where the 2 main characters, Sydney and Sierra, who are 11-year-old homeschooled twins, travel there with their parents, who are environmental photographers, to see the polar bears. And during her time there, Sydney, the main character, sorry, we'll have to get rid of that. Something happens to her, and she gains the ability to communicate with animals. And what the animals tell her in the different books, following book 2 and eventually book 3, inspire her and her sister to take real world action of something that is going on in that habitat. So the first book is global warming and melting sea ice and wildlife conservation with polar bears. And then the second book, which is No Time to Waste, focuses on ocean plastic pollution and the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Wow.
Yes.
It's exciting, and it's taking place in a real place. I know about that town. I think it's the most northern city in the world. Am I right about that?
It is. It's the launching place for people who are doing a trek to the North Pole. And it is a place, it's an archipelago. So it's a group of islands, and I went there myself. So each of the books, I travel to that place to learn and study and do research. And so that was, I couldn't make it to the North Pole, but I could go to Svalbard. So that's where I went.
Awesome. I really appreciate authors who take the time to visit places to do the research. I think it really helps the book. I also think it makes perfect sense, since your writing is a business and it's an expense, and so you get to enjoy a trip and get a tax break.
Right. Yes. That's what my husband's very happy about that. But the second book, No Time to Waste, takes place off the coast of Monterey, California. And that's a much easier place to visit than Svalbard, Norway.
Yeah, you can't drive from Illinois to Norway.
No, you cannot. And the third book, if I can give a plug for that, is called Make Way for Monarchs, and it focuses on the winter home of the migrating monarch butterflies that come in from the United States down to Mexico and then make the loop back up for their migration. And that takes place in Michoacan, Mexico, and I traveled there as well.
All right.
So it is very important for me to be in the place that I'm going to talk about. It makes research a lot easier, and I feel like the story is much more vibrant from having walked in those places that my characters walk.
Yeah. So your books are fiction, but it sounds like they have a lot of science backing up the exciting stories.
Yes, absolutely. There's STEM, earth science. There's I read so many articles on science, and I'm not a science-based. I did not. This was not my before writing. I was not a scientist. I'm sort of living out a dream, I guess, of being a scientist. But lots of reading, research, double checking, triple checking. Lots of National Geographic. That's my favorite reference. But books and adult books, lots of adult books. And then how do sometimes I put in the Google's in the search engine, how to explain climate change to kids. And because it is so scientific and so technical, and I have to just always remember who my audience is and break it down, not dumb it down, just break it down. Mm-hmm. So that they can understand and care.
Yeah. Now, were you able to visit the big, the plastic patch in the ocean?
The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is very far away, even though it is halfway between Hawaii and California. The interesting thing about the patch is that most people think it's an island of floating mattresses and equipment and netting. It's as if it's an island, and it's not. It's actually, most of it is underwater, and all those plastic things have been broken down into microplastics, which are, about the size of a pencil, the top of a pencil, or even smaller. And so there isn't really anything to see. There is plastic junk floating, but the majority of it is much farther down below the surface of the water. So if you arrived, you couldn't, hop, skip, and jump over a mattress and, plastic jugs and stuff like that. It is mostly underwater.
You are obviously very passionate about the earth and educating kids on it and educating kids and how they can help. Where did that passion come from?
I think it's because the passion comes from feeling like I can't do anything, but that's not true. I can do things. I love animals. I love nature, and I want other people to love it as much as I do. And I think of, by telling these stories, I'm hoping that kids will just go outside, put their phones down, their iPads down, their, whatever they're doing on digital, and go outside and smell the air and look at the sky and notice a flower. And I feel like when we can connect with nature on a very simple level, we want to then try to save it and do something about it. And so in my sort of sometimes getting a little panicky, I call it eco-anxiety, I want to help kids also sort of transform that eco-anxiety into an eco-action. So it's just my desire to help people see that we all can make a difference. I think most people go, oh, it's too big, I can't help. And that's not true.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of getting kids outside in nature. I think there's so many benefits, obviously. Helping kids develop a deeper love of nature and of the earth is a great benefit. But also just get outside and enjoy the butterflies, enjoy the fresh air. You mentioned, you use that term, smell the air. We've hosted international kids in our home, and one of them, many of them actually, but one in particular lived in China. And when she was leaving Boston to return to China, I said, what are you going to miss most about the city? I don't know if I was wanting her to say me, but but she said the fresh air. Mm-hmm. Because the city in China where she lives is one of the, if not the most polluted city in the world, with the smog and whatnot. So that really opened up my eyes,
right,
to understand how lucky we are, and to remember, because I'm almost 100 years old, it wasn't all that long ago that cities like Pittsburgh and Los Angeles, they had similar issues with air pollution.
For sure. Remember when, I don't know if Boston was affected by it, but all the Canadian wildfires, and then the sky just looked so weird. Even in Illinois, when the wind would shift, and then those winds would come right off the lake. What we were talking about before about how it's much cooler closer to Lake Michigan, but the air quality was poor. And even in California and Arizona, when there's fires, there's much poor air quality, and I think it's easy for us to take it for granted that we generally have good quality, nice clear air to breathe.
Why middle grade audiences? Why did you choose that genre?
I love middle grade. I used to teach middle grade. I used to teach fourth grade with a little bit of fifth, and I love them because that age is, they're just trying to figure out who they are in the world. They're still very dependent on their parents, but they have opinions and thoughts, and voices. And I love that sort of coming of age opportunity to reach those readers that want to learn about their environment or learn about nature, go on this wild eco adventure, and then also learn something too. I love books that teach us without being preachy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That middle grade audience is a real fun audience. I've did educational magic shows for decades, and that middle grade age group was a lot of fun to perform for. It was especially fun when I'd get to especially in middle school, mm-hmm. and principal would say, I don't know, these kids, they're going to be a tough audience. I hope you're ready. And every time it was like, no problem. We'll be having fun.
Absolutely. So when I taught fourth grade, what I liked about it most was they were, I can sometimes be sarcastic, and they would almost get it. Some of them would get it, some of them wouldn't, but they wanted to joke around. And when my best lessons were noisy and kids were moving around the room and someone would come in, and I'm like, it is organized chaos, but this is the best way to learn and to teach. And so I sometimes think of, I don't know, that's what I love about kids this age, is especially when I talk to them, readers that have read the books, and they are just, their minds are blown and they're excited, and you can see, synapses firing and critical thinking skills are being activated. And that is what I love about that age, is they really can think deeply about things and ask good questions.
Yeah. On reading with your kids, we really encourage families to continue reading with their kids long after they're independent readers, and whether that means reading out loud or co-reading with your kids. I remember my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Shute, reading to us every day after, I think it was after lunch, came back in from recess, and that was a great memory. I don't know if I would have had the same response if my mom decided she was going to read to me when I was in fourth grade, but I definitely remember looking forward to that read aloud that Mrs. Shute would do every day in class.
That is what drew me to your podcast. Honestly, I read to my kids. They allowed me, to read to them all the way through seventh grade. They were independent readers many moons ago, but we would read all kinds of books together, and they'd each be in their own rooms, and I'd sit in the hallway on like a little stool, and we would read together. And that's some of our best conversations, especially when they got to be older in that 7th, 8th, 9th grade time period where things really get weird for them. And all kinds of things we could still talk about books. When there are things that they didn't want to share, they went quiet. We could still talk about the characters that we were reading and ask good questions. They could be asking good questions. I could ask good questions, and then we could bond together in a way that we couldn't with anything else.
Yeah. At first it seemed kind of funny picturing you in the hallway with kids in different rooms on either side of you. But I know that a lot of the best conversations I had with my kids happened in the van, with us looking out, not looking at each other, being very much together and being close, but, me looking out to drive and not run into a pole, and my kids looking off into the distance somewhere. Really intense hours-long conversations.
Yes. I think they need to be able, I think these days kids aren't allowed that sort of escapism, if you will, allowed to just sit with their thoughts and ponder and, not answer. One of my kids, I have twin boys, which is why I like to write about twins. And one of them is very quick with the answer, right on the spot, has the answer. And the other one is more of a thinker and a ponderer. And we might already be on a new conversation, and he's still thinking about what we talked about 10 minutes ago. And when we're all done, he'd come up with the most in-depth, well thought out question or comment. And so that's what I loved about, it's what I love about car conversations or sitting in the hallway conversations.
Yeah. You mentioned that you like writing about twins because your sons are twins, but you wrote about twin sisters and Echo Warriors too. This is something I find interesting because I have a lot of authors come on and say, well, this was inspired by my daughter. This was inspired by my son. But the main character in the book that was inspired by the son is a girl, and the vice versa.
Right.
Any reason for that? Is that so you can say, no, it's not about you guys?
Well, I have another book that was traditionally published by Tiger Stripe Publishing that came out in 2018, has a boy, 12-year-old boy protagonist. And I thought maybe I'll just start writing about girls, but something about them, these girls are both of me, really. There's the STEM side, the science savvy side, which I wish I could be, and the dreamer, animal lover on the other side. And so I feel like they are me divided in two.
It's interesting. You just said that one of the characters is that STEM side that you wish you could be. And you've kind of said something similar a couple of times during the show. What is it? I personally think that you're writing these books and you are a scientist or you're inspiring kids to get into science. But what is it that's holding you back from saying, gosh, darn it, I'm a kind of a scientist in my own way?
That's true. Well, are we doing therapy now? Yes, absolutely. I am. Maybe we'll call it a do-it-yourself scientist program. So yeah, this is the way I live out my dream, I guess. I love the one of the reasons why I did not go into, I wanted to be a biologist growing up, or marine biologist. I mean, who doesn't want that? Work with whales and stuff. But I get seasick and I can't be on the water. So I am doing land-based science through my books.
Okay. I'm really fascinated about book 3 and your travels down to Michoacan. We've talked about that migration on the podcast in the past, and I'm just amazed. You have this little tiny creature that is maybe as big as my hand, but very delicate, very light. The head is no bigger than the tip of this pin. And yet they can, not only do they have the endurance and the strength to fly from Canada down through Boston down to Mexico, but they can navigate it and figure it out. And, I had cousins who couldn't find their way to downtown Boston.
Yeah. So you want to know how they do that?
Yes, because the other guests didn't know how that happened.
So it's several things. They are considered, they use the sun and the angle of the sun, and they have like little sort of magnets. I think the way I describe it in my book is sort of Earth is the mother magnet, and then they have like an internal magnet that can help them stay in line to where they want to go. So they're electromagnetic pull of the Earth or something like that. Wow. And they take the fly with the winds. The wind currents carry them. And did you know, this is my most fascinating fact about it, is that it takes 4 generations of monarch to complete one migration.
No, I did not know that. So the butterflies that start in Mexico, they don't make it all the way up. That doesn't, they have to.
No, but the ones the one that's in your garden, assuming you have a garden in Boston, in the summertime, that is probably the 4th generation butterfly. And it makes that 3,000, if it's coming from Canada, makes that 3,000-mile journey to Mexico by kind of Day of the Dead, so November 1st-ish. That's when it arrives. That hangs out in the forest at high elevation in the Oyamel forest in central Mexico, November, December, January, February. And then in March, it's this mass migration exit to Texas. And there they breed, lay eggs, and die. And then the first generation goes a little bit more, maybe to like Oklahoma, breeds that second generation. I just saw on my Instagram, because I follow Monarch Watch, some eggs, butterfly eggs have been located and found in Missouri. So that's the next generation. And then by the time it gets to Chicago in the summertime, that's the third generation and fourth generation. And then the fourth is the one that makes it. So it's 3 up and 1 to get down. And the ones that fly down live the longest and fly the furthest. So they can live 7 to 9 months, or not 7 to 9 months. Yes. And they fly the longest. The other ones live just a few, like maybe a month or so.
Okay. All right. Well, you're certainly a scientist in my book.
Thank you. I don't have the degree. I just have the,
Degree, schmigree. You know, you get the knowledge and you're inspiring kids.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So what was that? Were you able to walk through that forest with all those monarchs in vegetation?
It is. So it's a beautiful hike. Not difficult. Yes, it's difficult. However, it's a beautiful hike through the pine trees. First you take a horse for a little bit, then you get off the horse, and then you hike the rest of the way. It's at high elevation, and that is what makes the hike tricky. Okay. It's at high elevation, 11,400 feet or so. And so I was huffing and puffing, which makes for Sydney, the main character, that's her discussion as she's trying to get up this hill, this mountain, is that it is just so hard on to breathe, catch your breath. People, if you live in Chicago, you're not used to high elevation. It's very hard to train for something like that. Mexico City is at 7,000 feet, and even then, it's not. I go there all the time, so that's not a big deal. But that 11,000 is anyway. So you get up there, and you are not allowed to talk on your way up because the journey is considered very spiritual for a lot of people. So it's a very quiet hike. I was with people, but we spread out. So I hiked by myself up this trail, and there they all are, millions of monarchs, millions of them, all in the trees, coating them like honey all over the fir trees. And then when they get warm enough, they might like all take off at once. Wow. And it sounds like soft rain.
Wow.
That's the sound.
Well, I have to put that on my bucket list to check out. And we need to tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Echo Warriors 2, Echo Warriors 1, and more about Carolyn Armstrong.
Website.
Okay.
Would you like that one? Is www.ckabooks.com. And the CKA stands for Climate Kid Adventures.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we are excited to celebrate Echo Warriors 2, No Time to Waste. Our guest tonight has been Carolyn Armstrong. Carolyn, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. I love your show. I listen to it all the time.
Thank you. Hey, families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. Hey, parents, grandparents, caregivers, and teachers, are you looking for a fun way to teach important values to your kids? Check out Timothy'sLessons.com.
It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. Teaching life lessons to his friends. It's Timothy's Lessons. Forward thinking activity.
Check it out today, timothyslessons.com. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from beautiful Sacramento in California. Our guest is returning to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called Finally Home. Please welcome back Courtney Cino. Hey, Courtney, how are you?
Hey, Jen. Thank you for having me. Great to be back.
Delighted to have you on. Courtney and my beautiful wife hung out together at the Indie Author Summit in Kansas City last summer. What a great event that was.
It was. Yeah, it was great. And your wife is lovely. She was very fun to talk to. Yes.
Very, very, very much. She's my everything. Tell us all about Finally Home, please.
So Finally Home's a picture book for kids, roughly 4 to 8. And it's narrated by a little girl named Sarah. And it's based on or inspired by my family's experience in the military and going through homecomings and deployments, as many military families do go through those things. So it's for, military families and also all children. It's a great way to gain a little bit of insight, preview the world of what military families go through on a somewhat regular basis, actually.
Yeah. The military is in the news these days, not for reasons that we want, but I get upset because I think the military and a lot of different institutions in our society gets used to push one agenda or another. It's, and I think it's incredibly unfair because the sacrifices that the enlisted people have to go through in addition to their families is really intense, and they deserve better than becoming a pawn in a political game.
Right. Yeah. I think the families, especially the children, they're resilient and they have a unique experience growing up. There's about 1.6 million children that have parents who are service members, and these kids move around every 2 to 3 years. And so they're going through a lot and they're really strong. And, I want to bring light or shed light on that experience and elevate these kids in children's literature because, to your point, there's a lot said in the media about the military. And when you get back to basics and you really think about these are people that are serving, that are helping protect our country. And, these are families and they have very little individuals who are part of this journey, who are very young. They deserve to be, spotlighted in a way that unifies all of us, right? Homecomings and deployments. And in this story, it's a fictional story of a family waiting for their dad to come back. He's a pilot in a Marine Corps squadron. So they're experiencing nerves and joy and anxiety and, just celebrating this day, right? That's a very basic set of human emotions. And I wanted to just elevate that. And, it's a great kind of celebratory book that is a military story, but that's really a story of community and family and love and reunion.
Yeah. Could you take us through, you mentioned that families move every 2 to 3 years. Can you, and I've heard stories, I don't know if we talked about it. I don't think so. My daughter and her fiance went to visit some friends in Germany.
Okay.
Who were in the military. And when they arrived there, they had to sleep on air mattresses because the family had just gotten notice that they were being transferred back to the States in a couple of months. But whoever moves them decided, oh, well, we're moving you today. We know you're leaving in a couple of months, but now's the time we can move you. So,
Right.
talk a little bit about some of the craziness that happens during those moves.
Yeah. So, depending on your role in the military and the branch that you're in, the process could look slightly different, but often, you get a set of orders and, those orders, can tell you where your next, location, station of duty is going to be. And there's not always a lot of notice. And there are companies that help, with all the logistics of moving everybody either, in the US or overseas. And so sometimes you're at the whim of when they can do it. And, and not always in control of your schedule. So that's another part of, being a military family is they're incredibly adaptable. And I said resilient, and I say that often because that is a very accurate term. They're strong, resilient people. And you don't always own your schedule, of course, even with moves, with deployments. And so that's part of the role. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of stories around air mattresses, right, where you're just kind of like, okay, this is what it is, and then usually your stuff arrives and it's safe and it's well taken care of, but you just have to be flexible there.
Mm-hmm. And what a valuable skill for a kid to learn.
Yeah, I think they grow up facing these different circumstances that teach them a lot about adaptability, resiliency, being persistent. You're making new friends often, so learning social skills and all of those things. And at the same time, it's hard, right, for kids. When my husband and I were active duty, or my husband was active duty and I was not active duty, but obviously supporting and serving in my own way as a spouse. So they do learn a lot of skills, but also it's hard, right? It's not always an easy thing to experience and to go through.
We've talked a lot here on the podcast about kids who are neurodivergent, and as you're talking and talking about resiliency, are you aware of a lot of families that have kids who are neurodivergent, that one member is serving in the military, and are there ways to give those families the support that they may need?
Yeah, I think we know some families that do have family members that have different needs, and I think the military tries to accommodate much of that and has different services and programs in place. The military population is just like the general population. You have all different types of people and family members. There's just, within the military, because of the moves and deployments and such, you need a little bit more additional support and dedicated services. And so the military does try to accommodate those needs. And I think as best as they can. I think obviously there's different variables as far as geographies and where families are stationed.
Right. And the other thing about military families, in addition to moving, very oftentimes families are separated.
Right. Yeah. So, depending on the branch of the branch that the family is a part of, the deployments, there's family separations where a member might be just not at home, right? They might be in a different state for a couple months doing a specific project. A full deployment, could be anywhere in the world, and it could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, it could be 18 months, depending on the branch. And so absolutely, yeah, the family at that point would be separated, and the partner or the spouse that's staying home or staying local to where the family unit lives, a lot of burden falls on them as well as the service member that's overseas. And so there's stress on both sides. And what I wanted to capture in the story is, that day when families are finally reunited, that experience of, planning, preparation, and actually that planning and preparation is weeks before the day. The day is kind of all the final, little details that you're making sure the house is the way that you want it. You're making sure that, the kids are dressed if you want to put them in certain uniforms or outfits. You're making sure that the welcome home sign is ready. But the preparation and planning goes on for weeks. But in the story, the book specifically sheds light on that particular day, the day that the dad comes home, from the morning to the afternoon and when they're reunited, and kind of shows the reader all the different emotions and anxiety and anticipation, really, that a family might feel. And there's all different families in the book because, while Sarah, who narrates the story, is the main character, there's every family at a homecoming has their own experience, and it's a very different, unique story.
Yeah. I remember, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I was doing a show at a school. I think it was in Rhode Island. And right at the end of the show, a soldier, I believe he was in the Army, came in. He had just come home. And he reunited, just walked on the stage, and his daughter jumped up, and it was just beautiful. And I remember the principal coming up afterwards saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry you didn't get your round of applause that you deserved." I'm like, "Oh, dude, don't worry about that. That was beautiful. I was really happy to be able to sit down and experience that." I guess that's, that emotion that I saw there was something that is experienced by families probably daily in the military.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the homecoming days in particular are emotionally charged. They're very, we've talked about some of the emotions families feel. And when we had our homecomings and deployments, I remember those days vividly. You never forget them. They're burned in your mind. When we were starting to work on this book, because it had been a few years since we had experienced a homecoming, I wanted to do a good amount of research and just make sure, that what my experience was representative, and that I wasn't missing any major kind of emotions or objects that would be in view for the illustrations, for example. And yeah, it's watching homecoming videos on YouTube. I watched hundreds, if not thousands of them, preparing for this book. It's the most emotional experience for sure for military families, and even just witnessing it if you're not a military family.
Right. I'm imagining that there are all sorts of conversations that families can have while they're reading Finally Home. One of the things that I think families could talk about, I went to a Jesuit high school where the motto was we were to become men for others, and service was really kind of driven into us. People in the military, families, they're living that every single day. And I think in this world where social media and media telling us to go out, you deserve this, you deserve that, you should have the biggest and the best and the finest, and don't settle for anything less. I think a conversation about serving others and putting others first can be very, very valuable for kids.
Yeah, I think absolutely. You see families in the military do this for each other often. It's a connection and sense of community I've never felt anywhere else. And it's unique and it's special, and it in a lot of ways, it's an example for others maybe outside of the military to just, kind of pay attention to. And also, something related to this book and what you're just saying, is this idea of empathy. When military families might read this book and it might resonate with them, and it might provide comfort for someone who's experiencing a homecoming soon or who has experienced many of them. And they might say, "Oh, that's familiar. I felt those emotions too." But equally importantly for me is when non-military children and families and students and teachers or librarians, anyone who's reading it who may be outside of the military community, and you see this experience, this idea that maybe if you have classmates that are in the military or distant friends, you'll have a better understanding of this is a unique military experience. When someone's having a bad day, there might be a lot more going on at home. If they have a parent that's not there because they're deployed or they're about to move or that, so it's just a little bit of a preview, hopefully, into that world that's unique to the military.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. We love that books can be both mirror, but it also can serve as a window.
Absolutely.
And I think that is such one of the real magical things about books is that we can have a peek inside another culture. And another culture it could be somebody from another country speaking a different language, but it also could be somebody who is living in the military and serving our country.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these kids, these 1.6 million kids, and they're spread throughout the U.S., all over in different states. Like I said in the beginning, they're resilient, they're strong. They do have a unique experience that is not always front and center for other kids that may not be going through it. And so there are a lot of great books out there that also, kind of give a little preview or, shed a little light on military life. But this is another one of those great opportunities for a dialogue, around, oh, well, does that, what might it be like not to have your parent around for 6 months? And how does a family kind of work together with someone, far away, and when you're worried about them and yet you're still, trying to focus on school or sports, and also the spouse and what the spouse goes through. It's a lot of, burden for them. And, I'm not saying that with, it's something that they know that they're going to experience. And even when my husband deployed, you kind of mentally try to prepare, but you're never really prepared, right? You kind of just, you kind of mentally say, okay, well, we're going to get through this. And so, but they're going through a lot, right? And so this is just a little preview into that as well, that it's not just the children, but the spouse, and then also the one coming home as well. And then when they're reunited, it's this amazing, incredible moment, right? With joy and nerves and all of that, and relief, right, that they're home.
Right. And I imagine, too, there might be a little time to readjust.
Right.
For the spouse that's been away has gotten to a certain rhythm, and now they have to come home and, oh, yeah, I got to think of these guys, these little ones, and spend some time with them.
Yeah, when I was working on this book, I spoke with several military families about, not just the wonderful aspects of the day and the weeks that followed when someone comes home, but some of the challenges too. And to your point, yes, it's joyful and it's incredible, and you're relieved that someone's home and they're safe. There is an adjustment period. And I remember this too with my spouse. You have your routine, and then someone's coming into that routine, and you're kind of reorganizing your routine a bit when there's another person there. And then when you have kids layered into that, they have their routines. And so, yes, it's absolutely an adjustment period, I think, in the weeks and months that follow, and joy at the same time. And different emotions can live concurrently in a person, right? So that's a lot of what goes on in military families, I think.
Yeah. So how has your journey as a children's author and publisher been going?
It's been going great. Yeah. I think when I spoke to you last time, I had The Lights That Stay. We talked about that book. And I had the first book, Piper's Pet Pursuit, in the Piper's Adventure series. So I had two books at the time. And then this year now, you'll see Finally Home come out in May. And I have a book coming out in June that's called Sincerely Antonia. And that's a point of view book. So for families that have problems with ants in their kitchen at all, I don't know if you do in Massachusetts much because of the cold, but we do in California. This is a story about an ant who writes a letter to a little boy thanking him for the messes that he leaves around the house. And he's like, thank you, Jay, you're wonderful, but something's going on with your parents. And, you could figure out the parents are not pleased with the ants or the crumbs. And so it's a little bit of different perspectives going on. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah. Very different books, right? Finally Home. And then this kind of different point of view, funny book. So I enjoy doing that at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say they're very, very different. Does it take you a minute to kind of switch modes?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I'll kind of compartmentalize time, spend a few days on one book, spend a few days on another book. It would be a little bit mental gymnastics to try to do both of those storylines or work on, just storyboarding, work with the illustrator, for both those books in the same day. I think my brain couldn't bend that much. So.
Courtney, where can we go to find out more about Finally Home, the book about the ants, and find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website, whimspirebooks.com, and that is a great access point to all of my books, but also they are available through wholesalers and anywhere you would like to order or pre-order books, your local bookstore or anywhere online as well.
Yeah. And you can also go to your local public library and ask that they keep it in their shelves too. That's a big help to authors.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Yes. If you don't see it on the shelves, definitely would love if you'd ask for it. Absolutely.
We've had a great time speaking to the author, Finally Home. It's the new picture book from our friend, Courtney Cino. Hey, Courtney.
Jed, thank you so much.
You're welcome. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, there are a couple things we'd love for you to do. First off, we'd love for you to subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. Of course, we love all the platforms that carry Reading with Your Kids: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. And by subscribing to the show, you really help us out. You know, another way to help us out and help other folks find out about it and join us in our mission to help all families grow closer is to leave a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that if you could leave it on whatever platform you find us on, and if you find us on multiple platforms, leave the review on everywhere you find Reading with Your Kids. We'd be really, really grateful. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and @JedleyMagic on X. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And of course, our website is readingwithyourkids.com. If you're the author of a great children's book, you absolutely want to go to readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the author's Click Here button up at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest. Being a guest is fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlit fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Carolyn Armstrong. Please be sure to check out her middle grade novel, Echo Warriors 2, No Time to Waste. Also want to thank Courtney Cino. Please be sure to check out her new picture book. It's called Finally Home. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Stella Cheray, Megan Boucher. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. And coming May 3rd, you have an opportunity to start listening to podcasts with your kids when we roll out Real Magic, the Real Magic podcast, debuting on May 3rd.